what Mona said about Blueface on TikTok yesterday. Who is Mona and what did she say? Mona is a retired 304 that said Journey is bad and sent her to her. She straightened her out. Girl, get your own Journey pie, okay? Get your own. Everybody want Journey pie. Get your own Journey pie. She's not bad. She has a very high IQ. Go look that up. She got an Elon Musk IQ. There's a difference between bad and then there's a difference between high IQs. When you got a high IQ, you just be a little more advanced and you be a little more you just be a little bit more witty. And she's a lot more witty. Okay, that is me all over again.
There are moments on the internet that make you pause, blink twice, and ask yourself, did I just hear that correctly? And then there are moments that don't just pause you, they throw you into chaos, flip the narrative upside down, and leave the entire timeline arguing like it's a courtroom drama. And this is one of those moments. Because just when people thought they had the situation figured out, just when the clips of Blueface and Jaden Alexis's daughter having a full-on tantrum started circulating, just when the internet was ready to label it, judge it, and move on. Boom, enter Karlissa Saffold with a take so unexpected, so bold, so completely opposite of what people were saying. It didn't just raise eyebrows, it launched a full-scale meltdown. Because instead of calling it bad behavior, instead of saying, yeah, that needs correcting, Karlissa said, wait for it, this isn't acting out, this is intelligence. Yeah, you heard that right. Not a tantrum, not a meltdown, not a somebody get her a timeout. No, according to Karlissa, this is a sign that the child is smart. And just like that, the internet lost IT. Because now people weren't just reacting to a video anymore, they were reacting to an entire philosophy shift. Suddenly, the conversation went from what is she doing to wait, are we looking at this wrong? And trust me, nobody was ready for that twist. Not the critics, not the fans, not even the people who thought they'd seen every possible take in this chaotic universe. And the wildest part, Karlissa didn't sound unsure. She didn't sound like she was guessing. She came through with confidence, the kind of energy that says, I said what I said, and I'm not backing down. And when that kind of energy hits a situation this controversial, it doesn't calm things down. It sets everything on fire. Because now the question isn't just was that behavior okay? The real question is Karlissa defending or redefining the entire situation in a way nobody saw coming? Now, if you think this whole situation started with Karlissa just randomly waking up one day and deciding to flip the internet upside down with a bold take, yeah, not even close. This story, it's been simmering, building, and quietly stacking tension long before Karlissa Saffold stepped in and set everything on fire with one statement. Because when it comes to Blueface, Jaden Alexis, and anything even slightly connected to their world, drama doesn't just happen, it evolves. It all started with a clip, not a long documentary. Not a full explanation, just a short moment that somehow carried enough energy to spark a wildfire online. In that clip, their daughter was clearly upset, emotions high, reactions loud, the kind of moment every parent has probably seen at some point. But this time, it wasn't happening in private. It was happening in front of an audience that never misses a chance to judge, analyze, and overreact. And just like that, the internet did what it does best, ran with it. At first, the reactions were predictable. People labeling the behavior, calling it a tantrum, debating parenting styles like they suddenly had degrees in child psychology. Comments flooded in with opinions ranging from that needs discipline to this is what happens when you already know how that sentence ends. Everybody had something to say, and none of it was quiet. But here's where things started getting messy, because this wasn't just about a child's reaction. It quickly turned into a conversation about The environment around her, the dynamics between her parents, and the influence of being raised in a world where everything becomes content. Suddenly, one clip became a window into a much bigger narrative, one that people felt entitled to dissect piece by piece. And let's be real for a second. The context matters because Blueface's life. It's never been low-key, public relationships. Constant headlines, unpredictable moments. He's built a reputation where even the smallest situation can turn into a full-blown discussion. So when something like this surfaces, it doesn't stay small, it expands. Meanwhile, Jade and Alexis found herself right in the middle of it all. Not necessarily because she said anything dramatic at that moment, but because her role in the situation automatically placed her under the spotlight. People weren't just watching the clip, they were watching her reaction, her energy, her presence in that moment. And you already know, when the internet starts analyzing a parent in real time, it gets intense fast. Some defended her, saying, "Moments like that are normal and shouldn't be turned into a public spectacle." Others weren't as forgiving, using the clip as evidence to push their own narratives about parenting, influence, and responsibility. And just like that, what started as a single moment turned into a full-blown debate with multiple sides and zero agreement. But here's the twist, because while all this noise was happening, something else was brewing quietly in the background. Something that would completely flip the direction of the conversation. Because as people were busy criticizing, analyzing, and forming opinions, Karlissa was watching. And if there's one thing people know about Karlissa, it's that she doesn't just observe, she responds. At first, there were hints, subtle reactions, small comments, little moments that suggested she had something to say but hadn't fully stepped in yet. You know that feeling when someone is about to enter a conversation and you can sense it before they even speak? Yeah, that energy. Then came the buildup. Conversations online started pulling her into the narrative even before she directly addressed it. People wondering what her take would be, speculating whether she would defend, criticize, or completely ignore the situation. Because let's be honest, when Karlissa gets involved, things don't stay quiet, they escalate. And escalate they did, because by the time she finally spoke, the situation had already reached peak tension. The clip had gone viral, opinions were locked in, sides were chosen. And the internet felt like it had already decided what the truth was. And that's exactly what made her response hit so hard, because instead of agreeing with the majority, she went in the complete opposite direction. But before we even get to that moment, let's talk about the atmosphere leading up to it. Because this wasn't just a reaction to a clip, it was a reaction to everything surrounding it. The criticism, the judgment, the assumptions, the way people were so quick to define a situation they weren't actually part of. And in that environment, every word matters. Every tone matters. Every statement has the power to either calm things down or send them into overdrive. So when Karlissa finally decided to step in, it wasn't just about defending a child. It was about challenging the narrative that had already been built. And trust me, challenging the internet's narrative, that's like walking into a storm and deciding to turn the wind around. And the craziest part, she didn't come in quietly. She didn't tiptoe around the situation or try to soften her perspective. She came in with a statement that instantly changed the entire conversation. But what people didn't realize in that moment was that this wasn't just a response, it was the beginning of something much bigger. And just when the internet thought it had already said everything there was to say about that clip, Karlissa didn't just respond, she detonated the entire conversation. Because the moment Karlissa Saffold stepped in and basically said, "Y'all calling it a tantrum, I'm calling it intelligence," the timeline didn't just react, it collapsed into chaos. Because let's be real for a second, nobody saw that coming. People were expecting a defense, sure, maybe a kids will be kids, maybe a mind your business. But redefining the situation completely, turning what looked like emotional overload into a sign of brilliance, yeah, that hit different. And the internet, oh, it split faster than a reality show alliance during elimination night. One side was like, wait, hold on, she might have a point, while the other side was already typing paragraphs like they were submitting a final thesis titled "Why This Take is Absolutely Wild." There was no middle ground. Either you understood her perspective, or you were ready to argue it into the ground. Memes. Immediate, brutal, creative. People started flipping the narrative in the funniest ways possible. Videos of exaggerated reactions labeled genius moments. Edits comparing the situation to Einstein having a breakdown before discovering relativity. Even clips of chaotic scenes with captions like "high IQ behavior only." It went from serious to comedic in seconds, and somehow that made the debate even louder. But here's where things got deeper, because beyond the jokes and the sarcasm, people actually started analyzing what she said, like really analyzing it. Was she just defending, or was she trying to shift how people interpret children's emotions altogether? Because suddenly, this wasn't just about one child, it became a conversation about behavior, perception, and how quickly people label something as bad without understanding the context. Some fans backed her up hard, saying emotional expression can actually be a sign of awareness, complexity, even intelligence. They argued that the internet was too quick to judge, too quick to turn a moment into a label without considering what might actually be happening beneath the surface. And honestly, that argument gained traction fast. But then came the critics' sand. Oh, they came loud, because for them, this wasn't about interpretation, it was about accountability. They felt like calling that moment brilliance was just a way to avoid addressing behavior that needed guidance. And once that argument hit the timeline, it spread like wildfire. Suddenly, the conversation wasn't just messy, it was layered. You had people debating parenting philosophies like it was a live panel discussion. You had others dragging old moments into the spotlight, trying to connect dots and build a bigger narrative. And then you had the spectators, the ones just sitting back with popcorn, watching the chaos unfold like it was the season finale of a show they didn't even realize they were watching. Meanwhile, Blueface himself, moving like a ghost through the situation, not fully stepping in, not shutting anything down, just existing in the middle of a storm that had his name all over it. And you already know what that does. It makes people speculate even more. Because now it wasn't just about Karlissa's statement. It became about how everyone connected to the situation was or wasn't reacting. Where was the agreement? Where was the disagreement? Was everyone on the same page? Or was there tension behind the scenes that the public wasn't seeing? And then just when the internet thought it had reached peak chaos, celebrity commentary started creeping in. Not always direct, not always obvious, but those little reactions, those subtle likes, those side comments that make people go, wait, did they just co-sign that? And once that started happening, oh, it felt like the situation leveled up instantly. Because now it wasn't just fans debating, it was influence. It was visibility. It was people with platforms adding fuel, even if they didn't say much. And when that happens, the conversation doesn't shrink, it expands, and comparisons got even wilder too. Some people said this whole situation felt like a Zeus Network reunion episode where everyone's yelling over each other but nobody's actually resolving anything. Others compared it to WWE storylines where roles flip mid-match and the audience doesn't know who to cheer for anymore. And honestly, that confusion, that unpredictability, that's exactly what kept people glued to the drama. But here's the part that really shifted the energy. Because while all this noise was happening publicly, there were subtle hints that things behind the scenes weren't as loud but way more intense. Not arguments we could hear, not statements we could quote, but moments, little shifts in tone, small changes in interaction, the kind of details you only notice if you're really paying attention. Because when a situation reaches this level of attention, it doesn't just stay online. It bleeds into real life, into conversations that don't get posted, into reactions that don't get recorded, into dynamics that are way more complicated than what we see on the surface. And that's what made everything feel even more unpredictable. Because while the internet was busy arguing over what was said, the real impact of those words might have been happening somewhere else entirely. And now we're at a point where the conversation isn't just about that one clip anymore. It's about perception. It's about influence. It's about how one statement can completely reshape how people interpret a situation. But the biggest question still hasn't been answered. Because was Karlissa just defending her family? Or did she just park a conversation that's about to get even more complicated? And just when it felt like the internet had reached maximum chaos, maximum debate, maximum okay, there's nothing left to argue about, that's when the energy shifted. Not louder, not messier on the surface, but deeper, way deeper. The kind of shift where you realize this situation didn't end, it evolved. Because after all the noise, all the memes, all the think pieces, something unexpected started happening. People stopped just reacting and started watching closely, carefully, like they were waiting for the next move in a chess game that nobody fully understood yet. And when that kind of attention locks in on a situation involving Karlissa Saffold, Blueface, and Jaden Alexis, you already know something bigger is brewing under the surface. Because here's the truth nobody wants to say out loud. This was never just about a clip. It was never just about one moment, one reaction, one statement. That clip, that was just the spark, the real fire. Oh, that's everything surrounding it, the history, the dynamics, the patterns people think they're seeing. And the emotions people are projecting onto a situation they're not actually. Inside of .and that's where things got complicated in a completely different way. Because now, instead of arguing about what happened, people started questioning why it happened. Not in a judgmental way, but in a curious, almost investigative way. What environment leads to that kind of reaction? What dynamics shape that kind of moment? What's really going on behind the scenes that the public doesn't get to see? And suddenly, the conversation matured. Just a little, not fully. This is still the internet. Let's not get carried away, but enough to shift the tone from chaos to curiosity. Meanwhile, Karlissa's statement, it didn't fade. It didn't get forgotten. It lingered. Like a line that people kept replaying in their heads, trying to decide whether it was genius or just wild. And the craziest part, the more people thought about it, the less clear the answer became. Because on one hand, calling emotional expression intelligence felt bold, almost revolutionary. On the other hand, it felt controversial, like it challenged a system people were used to. And when something challenges what people are comfortable with, it doesn't just get accepted, it gets questioned repeatedly, loudly, and Blueface. Still moving like a silent variable in an equation nobody can solve, not confirming, not denying, not stepping in to redirect the narrative. And that silence, it kept feeding the mystery. Because every time people expected clarity and didn't get it, the story stretched a little further. Jaden Alexis, on the other hand, became a focal point in a quieter way, not through loud statements or dramatic reactions, but through presence, through subtlety, through the way people kept watching her for signs of agreement, disagreement, tension, calm, and every little detail interpreted differently by everyone watching. Some saw strength, others saw restraint, some saw calm control, others thought there was something unspoken. And just like that, even silence became a storyline, because in situations like this, doing nothing can sometimes say more than doing everything. And then came the shift in public perception. Not a full reversal, not a dramatic flip, but a gradual change. The kind where people start questioning their own initial reactions. Wait, did we overreact? Did we jump to conclusions? Did we turn a moment into a narrative too quickly? Because let's be honest, the internet doesn't always wait for context. It reacts first, analyzes later. And sometimes, by the time the full picture starts to form, the narrative is already out there, loud, viral, and impossible to fully take back. But here's where things take that final twist, because even with all this reflection, all this discussion, all this back and forth, the situation still doesn't feel finished. it feels paused, suspended. Like a story that hit a dramatic moment and then cut to black right before the biggest reveal. Because say there are still gaps, still questions, still moments that don't fully connect. And when that happens, it leaves room for continuation, room for another chapter, room for something unexpected to drop and completely reshape everything again. And if there's one thing we've learned from this entire situation, it's that nothing stays simple for long. What starts as a single clip can turn into a full-blown narrative. What looks like a small moment can evolve into a major discussion. And what feels like the end of a story is usually just the setup for what comes next. So now the real question isn't, was that a tantrum? Or was that intelligence? The real question is, what happens when the next moment hits? Because if this situation taught us anything, it's that the story doesn't end when the internet stops talking. It ends when something new replaces it. And right now, nothing has replaced it yet. Which means one thing, this story isn't over. Now come on. If this situation didn't have you pausing mid-scroll, replaying clips, and arguing with strangers in your head like you're part of a live debate panel, then I don't know what will. Because this wasn't just a viral moment, this was a full-blown storyline with twists, opinions, and enough chaos to keep the internet fed for days. So I need you in the comments right now, don't be shy. Was Karlissa actually making a valid point, or did she just flip the narrative in the most unexpected way possible? Are you seeing intelligence, or are you still side-eyeing the whole situation like, yeah, something ain't adding up? Because let's be real, y'all got opinions, and I know you're ready to drop them. And don't just lurk in silence like you didn't just witness this entire drama unfold. Now, go ahead and smash that like button like it owes you rent. Hit subscribe like you're locking in VIP access to every messy update. And turn on those notifications so you don't miss the next plot twist, because if this situation taught us anything, it's that the next chapter is always louder than the last. Also, share this video with that one friend who pretends they're above drama but somehow knows every detail before you even press play. Yeah, we all got one. Expose them respectfully. Or not. Because over here, we don't just watch the chaos, we break it down, spin it, and serve it with extra heat. And trust me, stories like this, they don't just disappear. They evolve. So stay tuned, stay curious, and stay ready. Because the mess, oh, it's just getting started. Fame flaws.